Welcome to Getting Defensive Thursday edition, presented by Gridiron Ratings. Your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. I'm your host, JJ Wenner. You can find me on Twitter at JJ Wenner. And tonight we have football. We have football.
Yay.
We are also fighting on Twitter at JJ Wenner. Injuries and hopefully some. And tonight we have football. Oh. With me tonight is Gridiron Ratings senior IDP analyst. You can find him on Twitter at the IDP tipster, Gary Van Dyke. Gary, are you having some technical issues?
Yeah, I'm over here crashing and burning. That's normal. Hit mute, come back on. Hit mute, come back on. I don't know, man. Roll on, dude. Roll on.
Well, also with us is our returning champion once again, 3 weeks running. You can find him on Twitter at Dynasty Tripp Rebner. What is going on, Tripp?
Man, it's a great day for football. I'm in the low-tech studio here. Yeah, rocking it out, man. No technical glitches here. Happy for some football with the Cowboys and the Bucks.
Oh, man. Tripp, I have drafted so many Cowboys in my redraft teams that I am practically playing all of my squads tonight. But
I hear you.
Before we kick off tonight, remember to subscribe below for a chance to win the Gridiron Ratings Playbook, the only resource you need for all of your fantasy leagues. We will draw one winner for every 25 new subscribers, so be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have hit another milestone and have selected the winner of the Gridiron Ratings Playbook. Gary, I am going to take the honor, because of your technical difficulties, to announce the winner.
I'll just crash and burn, man.
Thomas Schneider. Thomas Schneider, you have won the Gridiron Ratings Playbook. Thank you for subscribing. And if you want to win, make sure you subscribe below. Now, gentlemen, it is showtime. The game is tied. I think it's time for some news. Are we ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, TJ Watt signed a mega deal today. We were worried that it was going to last into the season. 4-year, $112 million, $80 million guaranteed. Gary, every new deal is crazy until the next one is signed. Yeah. Who are the edge rushers who may eclipse this next season?
Oh,
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, because I'll tell you off the top. The first guy I wanted to mention was Daniel Hunter, but I don't know. He would have to really, really come out back just like he was before last year. I'm not sure what Daniel Hunter's. This is a big pop, man. This wasn't fair. I would think Daniel Hunter might be worth it. I think that he's only a year older than TJ Watt, but I mean, we still got, you're talking next year. Young's going to be. I don't think they're going to make him play into his third year or something. Fourth year, man, he might get paid next year. I guess he better really prove himself this year.
Well, hopefully that defense holds up. Now, I'm not recommending visiting Baltimore anytime soon, because it seems if you go to Baltimore, you're going to hurt yourself. Again, they lost all 3 running backs. And just today, quarterback Marcus Peters went down with a possible ACL injury, and it's probably out for the year. Tripp, I know you were excited about the Ravens cornerbacks. Who is stepping up to replace Peters?
Well, it's we've talked about Tavion Young in the slot, and they have the veteran Jimmy Smith there.
Jimmy always hurt Smith.
Yeah. They got this young guy named Brandon Stevens there, who's kind of a jack of all trades, and they were messing with him as a bit of a rover. And man, maybe he has to step up and play outside. I'm not sure. I have to check the depth chart to see exactly who's stepping up there next. But that's the guy that comes to my mind. He's the guy that I thought, on an efficiency standpoint, be interesting from an IDP standpoint, but I can't imagine him getting enough snaps. But maybe the door's open for him there. That's somewhat interesting.
I think in the past he's filled in as a part-time starter when they needed him, injuries or whatever. He's never lived up to mediocre type of play. If he's got anything going for him, if he's actually going to be named that outside across from Humphreys, it would be that people are going to pick on him. The quarterbacks are going to pick on Jimmy Smith's side, so and I don't think he's all that great in coverage, actually. That might be why he might offer a little bit of IDP protection and tackles, having to tackle the guy after he catches the ball. I'm not 100% sure that that's who they're going to go with, because I don't know I know they got, like Tripp said, they have a few in there, right? A few young guys.
Yeah, it's a kind of bare. I mean, the guys that they have it's interesting. I'm looking at it now. So they got Marcus Peters. His backup is listed as Jimmy Smith, and then on the other side they have Marlon Humphrey, and then Anthony Everett is kind of a cornerback safety hybrid. That's our lads. I think he's more of a safety. Chris Westry, a street free agent from 2021, I never heard of, and Tavon Young, who I mentioned, and then there's Brandon Stevens. So that's the guy I kind of come back to, is the guy that looks like he could step up and play more, but it begs the question, who plays on the boundary? Jimmy Smith is the only guy with a lot of experience doing that, and he's just real long in the tooth. He's not a full-timer anymore. So they're in a bit of a jam right there.
Yeah, it's a very shallow depth chart. Lots of untested guys who are going to have to step up if that team is going to be competing this year. Gentlemen, staying in the defensive backfield, Tyrann Mathieu has been out of camp since September 1st because of COVID, and he may not play this week. Is there anyone on the roster who I should consider subbing in for Tyrann Mathieu, or is he like a diamond in the rough? Like his role won't be covered by anyone else?
Yeah, I think they do something different. He's kind of that defensive weapon guy that you like to move around to attack defenses, and I think they're probably a little more conservative. You got Daniel Sorensen continues in his role as more of a in the box safety, and then you got Armani Watts and Juan Thornwell come in, and the two of them are more conventional deep safeties. So I still think they probably play plenty of three safety looks, but I wouldn't count on either Watts or Thornhill for any IDP production.
If anything, Sorensen might get a little bit of a bump.
Now, looking at the game right now, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch. The Cowboys are rotating linebacker pairs. So it seems to be LVE coming in and Parsons and Neal are coming in on passing downs. And the other two are like rotating in for the base package. That looks like a cluster where you're not going to be able to start anybody, right?
Yep. Yeah. I was thinking and hoping that Parsons would be the full-time guy, and he may still be as the season evolves. But yeah, none of the rest of them are worth the darn. I see people on the Bird app saying, "Hey, pick this guy or that." No, just leave them all aside. They can literally be on the waiver wire, which is going to be hard for folks to hear because there's name recognition there but that's it.
We were talking the other day on Tuesday's edition, maybe it might have even been last Tuesday, and James had mentioned that it might take injury to really start to separate anybody, So yeah, it's definitely turned into quite. It's got a good probably dynasty aspect as long as you're looking at Parsons, but other than that, it's a redraft recrap right now.
Well, looking at the other side of the ball on a good note, Devin White already has 6 tackles, 4 solos, kind of blowing up as they start the second quarter. So if you started Devin White, you're off to a good.
Well, I hope
if you did, if you didn't start Devin White,
you have some issues.
He was on Gary's sit recommendation list.
Yeah, right.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
Well, that was kidding.
Gentlemen, go ahead.
You were mentioning Marlon Humphrey. We talked a bit about last time we were on, I think, about whether or not Marlon Humphrey could be the overall CB1 again. And we talked about how he was going to be on the boundary and was not going to be able to have those same opportunities. And this just cements that. But Marlon Humphrey is the only successful boundary corner they have. He is not going to play in the slot. He is not going to blitz as much. He is not going to be contributing to run defense as much. So those folks that are out there thinking he's their CB1 need to rethink.
Yeah, absolutely. As injuries happen, roles change.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're the most reliable corner on the team, you're going to have to cover.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to cover. Before we get to our green dot conversation, gentlemen, I want to turn this over to Gary to go over some of his IDP start sit charts. Gary, you're in control.
Hello, folks. So some of you all know that I've been doing these start sit charts for some time. If you haven't, this might be new. But either way, after a long awaited and a lot of hard work this past week, we've got them live at gridironratings.com. Just go to the IDP homepage or in the menu, pull down Tipster's Office, and you'll find the charts all listed there. So these were completely revamped. I have people that used them in the past. I used to do this by hand, and it had a totally different look. And we've completely taken that same 5-step formula and put it to work digitally, I guess you could say. So these charts are actually going to be available every Tuesday. Just got to do some updating. It's not going to be a long wait. You'll have to wait longer on my tipsters take, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I just would like to go over some of these cool features here. I'm going to scroll down. We've got all kinds of players we can go on. I think we had like over 750 in the whole pool for just IDP, some depth players. But if you get a chance, and right now these are free for everybody for 4 weeks, why the 5-step formula primes. Right now they're working off of projections and information we had from the end of last season, of course. And it's also why we tell people, don't sit a stud week 1. You know, don't split those hairs. Don't get all nervous because your guy said fringe, but he's still, play your guys. It's the fantasy gods are going to take fate on whatever it is week 1, no matter what we say. All right. And it's probably like that for the next 2 to 3 weeks until things balance off. But that's exactly how this formula works. After we start getting information that makes these columns, and I'll explain them a little bit here in a second. Once that information starts building up over the next 3 to 4 weeks, in the past that I've been doing these things, and I'm telling you for a very, very long time, it usually takes about that 4th week for them to really get their prime, and their hit rate really comes up. It stays up. In the past, I didn't even check it last year, but in the past it's been 80, 85% some weeks. And the average is at least 75 to 80 on the year when it's all said and done. So with this being said, if you take a look up here, we get an SSR start sits rating. It's basically just the overall rating of all the information we have together. That is separate from my tipsters take, because you can rate everybody you want, but that's the one thing about this formula is that I've got to read it for you and know the situation, because I'm sitting and I'm watching every one of these players. I'm looking these players up. I'm finding out if they're doing any good, if their snap counts are dropping, what's going on. So this is where the tipsters take comes in. And a lot of you people that used them in the past, they know what I'm talking about. It's also how once we become members and lock it down, it's how we find sleepers. This is the exact same formula that I watch all the time and figure out all the time, so that I can come up with those in-season sleepers, which happens to be the IDP tipsters motto. To go ahead and cut straight to it. So the SSR, like I said, it's accumulation of all the other information off to the right. Status is real simple. Status goes with your rating. Okay. It's just a simpler way for you to start, whatever, and read it. You can read the columns if you want. Then the SCR is the snap count rating. And that's a couple of not only snap count and percentages, but it's another little factor we put together and we come up with a rating for it. With the GRR speaks for itself. That's our GridironRatings.com rating, which right now they're a little bit low. It's beginning of the season, folks. So, when you're reading these numbers, it's just like anything else. It's built off projections. So things will prime as we go. Then we have the FPR, which is the fantasy points rating, which is another couple of things put together to come up with this rating. And all of it is added together. The most important probably, and one of the things that actually a lot of people liked in the past, was my matchup strength rating charts that I used to put out on Tuesdays. Well, they are, and I've always claimed they were a part of this formula. And it's like it's got its own 3 things in itself to accumulate the matchup strength rating. Well, we've taken it even a step farther because it's on here. It's going to be updated every Tuesday. Like I said, you're not going to have to wait. It's not going to come in some little Google Doc looking thing that I just crapped out on. This is going to have it for you, and it's even better because it's doing it for the players where I used to do it for the team. So it will split those hairs for us a little bit farther. You can, check out these charts. I got IDL, DL, edge, inside linebacker, DB, QB, safeties. Got 8 of them. If you can't find what you need in there, I don't know what to tell you. We extended the amount of these that we're doing right now. Traditionally, I only did 4, but we found, once we got it all digitized, we was fine with it. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I urge you all, take advantage of these things. Go to gridironratings.com. As I said, find the tipster's office is the best way to get to them. It's underneath the IDP main menu pull down, and enjoy.
So before you take this down, just a couple of questions. If you can actually scroll up to the top. So if you sort by your SSR, the start sit rating, that's different than your tipster take. But what is different? So if that's the start sit rating.
All right, well, let's come down through here. Okay, well, of course. Folks, I want to be clear about something too. Let's go up here for a minute and we'll talk about these. Okay, so if it says start, the player's weekly scoring average is his floor. So whatever usually averages in your league, is like career average or weekly average that you depend on. If it says fringe, the player's weekly scoring average is his ceiling. Okay. And then when it says sit, the odds are poor the player will be IDP relevant. We're probably at best usually looking at about half of his average at that point. Last year, Aaron Donald flopped. And every time that he did, I had a big old warning in my charts that he could, and to find somewhere else. This thing works, folks. But either way, I'm excited about it. I used to have a saying, trust the charts, when I was part of the IDP guys. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you did.
Right. Okay. So if we go on down
that's what I'm
here,
going to stick with.
I'm glad you asked. Now you got me going again. So I'm going to write in there. Yeah, I'm not going to have it perfect because this is me and I am human. But like I got some IR information. But like right here with Christian Jones, it would make no sense. Now this is like I said, based off projections, based off this player's career, and it's coming up. We know we're not playing Christian Jones for Chicago because he's not the man with Danny out. It's Ogletree. So I put on here trust issues a must sit. So I have no problem going against what the actual formula says because it doesn't know the real life scenarios. So that's where I fine tune everything for everybody by keeping track on everything that I possibly can. TJ
I have
Watt.
to say, I really like this, Gary, because it seems to be a good mix of analytics, film, and just common sense.
I'll tell you, I get kind of choked up when I talk about this because I've said it before, and I appreciate all the folks that's used it in the past. It's my bread and butter. It worked for me for years before I ever come and started sharing it about 5 years ago with the fantasy football community before I got sucked into this. So yeah, I love it. And to see it come full circle to this point to where it's digital like this. And like I said, I'm not going around on 5 different sites looking at 5, 6 different information and trying to do this on a notebook pad and thinking in my head, this is the next level. And I'm excited to see what this thing's going to look like when it comes up for the 3rd and 4th week. And it's really started prime. It always hits a really nice stride by bye weeks. Now we got 17 weeks this year. Everybody's going to be a little bit off. They're going to be handling their players a little bit differently. A few hangnails might actually get guys rested, but we'll see how that goes. But either way, that I can't wait to get this. Just even this information from this first week, it's just going to be totally different.
Well, I'm excited to see it in action. I'm excited to see it once it gets primed up and ready to go. If you have not subscribed to Gridiron Ratings, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, especially if you are in a lot of IDP leagues like I am. Now, as I like to say, gentlemen, I am an IDP enthusiast. I consume a ton of content, and I play in way too many leagues. That is why I like to approach things from the perspective of a new IDP manager. So I read a lot about green dots and discussions about who is wearing the green dot. Gary, what is a green dot and why should I care about it?
Well, the green dot, you can only have one green dot on the field on defense or offense. A quarterback's on the offense. He's the guy who's calling the play. So you have to have a guy on defense doing that too. They have a green dot right in the back. Says that I'm the guy. And 99.9% of the time used to be that they didn't leave the field. Few more do now here and there. But being a full-time player, because you've got to be on the field, run the defense, is a huge bonus. It can actually, we've seen it happen. It can make an average guy that can decide an average talent skill set on the field. If he can read the defense and get the right plays called and make the right adjustments, and it's his job, he can be very productive by default, if nothing else.
So the green dot is the player in communication with the coaching staff who calls the plays.
Yes, sir. He gets the earpiece. He gets to hear the calls.
Now, I guess I should ask, do they cut that communication off like they do with offenses? Is that only good to call the play, or are they coaching them up? Sort of like you heard about Jared Goff, right? Like they would talk to him up until the point where he was getting ready to read the defense. Or is this just they call the play and the player has to do everything else?
Tripp. What do you? I got an idea, but go ahead, Tripp.
I don't know. I would assume the rule applies the same, but with 15 seconds on the play clock, that the communication to the field is cut off. But that's a good question. I hadn't thought of that before. I remember that from Jared Goff being an issue.
Yeah, because that would be hilarious, and it would make no sense why 3 seconds before they're getting ready to snap, the defensive coordinator is then going, hey,
look over there.
Yeah,
look over there.
He's yelling fake as the play is
off. Right. Looking like he's going to lose it. Yeah.
Okay, so now that I understand that, is it always a linebacker who wears it? Tripp?
No, last year, the TJ Watt's kind of a linebacker, but he's worn it in the past. There are several safeties that are wearing it these days. Chuck Clark for the Ravens, and the Rams are, I think, going to roll with Jordan Fuller with the dot. Was what I'm hearing. So, and that's becoming increasingly a trend because teams don't necessarily want to keep a linebacker on the field 100% of the time. They have a safety who is out there 100%, and they want him. Of course, the limitation there is it's awfully hard for that player to be the single high playing 20 yards deep if he's wearing the dot and trying to scream out to his teammates what the play call is. So there's a couple wrinkles involved.
Yeah, especially if you're on the road, right? Playing in a hostile environment, trying to get your defensive play calls in, right? Home crowd goes nuts. Well, let's jump into some of the situations where I want to find out who's wearing the green dot this year. Now that I know what a green dot is and I'm excited about it, let's go up to Green Bay. No better place to talk about a green dot. Who is wearing the green dot up in Green Bay, Tripp?
Well, for everything I've seen, is Chris Barnes, who was the UDFA from last year and a rookie. And Gary brings up the point about making an average player a great IDP, and that's the perfect example. He's a guy that's going to be out there. I feel sure there's some counter takes to this, but I feel sure that Barnes is the 100% guy. I think he's out there with Devondre Campbell and nickel, but I think Campbell is I'm not a huge fan of his game. I think that the Packers continue to show a fair amount of dime using both the star and the slot positions in their defensive backfields. And I think that Campbell will lose significant snaps. And Barnes is a good example of a player who's cerebral, who reads defenses, who makes up for a lack of athleticism by being able to respond quickly and be at the right place at the right time. And the Packers, I hate to use past examples with tackle production because of the change in defensive coordinator, but I think that the style of defense will be somewhat similar. I think it'll be similar to what we've seen with the Rams and some of the other teams that are playing this kind of a nominal 3-4 with a lot of dime looks, and I think he'll be a very productive player for IDP. He's a guy that I've sought out this season.
Awesome. Gary, jumping to Houston. Are we looking at Kirksey, Cunningham? Who's wearing the green dot over there?
Kirksey, not for at least a few weeks until he's hurt. But yeah, if he can manage to stay on the field, he's got the green dot right now. The way he had the opportunity last year when he went in with Green Bay, he was the Barnes replacement, or he was there before Barnes, and then he got hurt within like 2 or 3 weeks, I think, or 3 or 4 weeks. He was really productive. He's probably going to be about the same here. I mean, if we look at just who played the position last year next to Cunningham, what was his name?
Tyrell Adams.
Yeah. And then he shipped off to Buffalo, and he's nothing but a depth. He might have actually got cut. But either way, he was pretty productive, and he won a lot of people some late runs into the playoffs because they were able to pick him up off the waiver wire after Kirksey went down. Apologize. After McKinney went down, right? Apologize. But either way, Kirksey's your guy. He's probably best to be looked at, even if he pops off a couple of good weeks. He's the second guy on that squad. You still want Cunningham, but Kirksey's going to give you some tackle numbers. He's got the green dot. He's not going to leave the field, and opportunity is everything.
They got a lot of linebackers on that squad. That's what I wonder. That's my hesitation with taking Kirksey in like an eliminator. I think he has an awful lot of upside to be productive week in and week out. But if you can't make lineup adjustments, man, at what point does he lose the job to Pierre Lewis or?
Yeah, that's exactly who I was. I actually like that signing. I like Pierre Lewis. I liked him when he was with Kansas City, I believe, or Arizona, Kansas City.
Kansas City, Washington, Seattle. He's been around.
Yeah. When he turned around, he looked good up in Chicago for a little bit, and then he got himself into some trouble. So yeah, he kind of stepped back at a point where he might have been able to take a step forward. But yeah, Kirksey, I don't know anymore.
So is it safe to say that we expect Zach Cunningham to drop from where he finished last year?
I don't see how you could bet that he doesn't. The tackle efficiency was just through the roof. Yeah. And people say, well, all the same ingredients are there. And you hard to argue that, right? The defense should be bad. They struggled to get off the field last year. They played a lot of too high. They didn't have I think they'll do the same this year where they're not going to have a lot of competition from the safeties for tackle. I think it's those two linebackers eating some two-gapping in front of them. Well, I don't know, man, not a ton of two-gapping. We'll see. But I think that's fair to expect him to still be an LB1, but there's downside because he'll lose some snaps in dime, assuming that Kirksey does wear the dot and they do go some. I don't think I'll see a lot of dime, but the modern NFL, it's awfully tough to bet on two linebackers on the same team, and so for that reason alone, Cunningham's not a guy I land. He's always a guy that someone's willing to expect the similar results from last year. I'm just not. I'm baking in more risk than that.
All right. Well, an update on the game. Buccaneers are up 14-7. Devin White's up to 7 total tackles. Leading the Cowboys is Anthony Brown with 5 total tackles and no sacks either.
He's tackling Antonio Brown. That's why he's getting peppered targets.
Right.
Yeah, the two Brown boys going at it. The last team I want to talk about as far as green dots go, Pittsburgh. Bush, Schobert just came in. I thought it was going to be Bush heading into the offseason. The Schobert signing and what we've seen in training camp, I kind of leaning the other way now. Gary, who's going to wear the green dot?
I believe Schobert still ends up with it. Yeah, they've seen enough of Bush. They're not going to have him out there full time. Whatever packages they decide to use him in, whatever they decide to do, Schobert's not coming off the field. They made that trade for a reason. They took that on for a reason. And Devin Bush hadn't been getting it quite done. So I've been throwing out those warnings since first of the year, folks. Devin Bush is dropping, and Scobert just probably sealed that deal.
Man.
I think in defense of Bush, I think that it's like Cunningham in the sense that you want this guy out there running and chasing. You don't want him thinking. He's the athlete. He's the guy that you want to make plays and not worry about setting the defense. And Schobert has a good long history of setting the defense. That said, I think the downside for Bush is greater than it is for Cunningham, and people are not baking that into their draft positions from what I'm seeing. I still have Bush pushing the LB1 conversation. And I look back at his rookie year snap totals, and he had 3 or 4 games where he played 100%, but he also had a couple games where he was in the 60s. Yeah. I would be worried about that. The only saving grace he has is they cannot seem to figure out their dime personnel because they cut Antoine Brooks and are cut Arthur Millette. And so, but I would still be awfully concerned about him being a guy that's playing like 80% of the snaps and certainly being productive and efficient while he's out there. But it's awfully hard to make up with a loss of 20% of your snaps. I mean, that's like 2 tackles a game. And so that's 4 points in some scoring settings. And you got to,
and then he would just
make up for it.
And he would disappear on us. He would have a good game, disappear, come back and forth. Talking about Bush, it's just, it's a very aggravating. I can imagine for Tomlin, because it's hard to believe a middle linebacker could record 3 tackles. If I recall right, there are plenty of games that he's had in his career where he had 3 tackles. That's not middle inside linebacker production there. And it possibly was a really good sign that Tomlin was not, thinking this guy's going to catch on, because he just continuously did that. It was a good move by them to get Scobert.
Yeah, I worry about the very fast middle linebackers who chase down plays. As a Jets fan, we had Darren Lee, who flamed out. He could run really fast, but he couldn't shed a block. Yeah. And unfortunately, when you're in the NFL, you got to get some big guys getting their hands on you, and you have to be able to get off the block, or your speed doesn't matter.
I did my Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings or whatever, just did them earlier today. And it was so wild because at the first part of the year, I think I had Bush in the early 20s in linebacker rankings, right? Linebacker, maybe the low teens. And here I dropped him clear into 60 in the overall IDP or whatever. He was my 38th something linebacker in the tackle heavy ratings. So yeah, he's fall from grace. We see it all the time. It happens all the time.
Game update. Cowboys just scored to make it 13-14 with 4 minutes left in the first half. Gentlemen, I want to get out of here so I can watch the rest of this game. So is there anything else you guys want to talk about tonight?
Well, hey, let me rattle these off for you, folks. I just did one. It won't take but a second. You can get to your game. But I thought that I would share the list that at least that I've gotten together from what I've researched. And I was going to tell everybody real quick. 49ers, you got Fred Warner wearing the green dot. With the Bears, you got Rogan Smith. The Bills, you got Edmonds. The Buccaneers, you got White. Chargers, you have Derwin James, is wearing that dot. The Colts, you got Darius Leonard. These might be a little bit out of order because I have other information on here in this dime drop for members only that I'm pulling some of this out of. Sorry about that. So Cowboys, Parsons, Falcons, Deion Jones, Giants, Martinez, Jaguars, Miles Jack, Jets, CJ Mosley until Jared Davis returns, and unless one of these rookies that everybody was hyped up on turns into Superman or something. Saints, you have Davis. Seahawks, Bobby Wagner, of course. Steelers, Joe Scobert. Bengals, Logan Wilson. It's a good story here, folks. There's another one of those maybe just good enough talents. As long as he can read that defense, he's going to be an every down and middle inside linebacker. People are undervaluing this with him, I think. Anthony Walker, same way. Then you have Jalen Collins for Cardinals. Dolphins, you got Jerome Baker from as far as I could tell. Eagles is Eric Wilson. Lions is Alex Alizano, which, hey, there it is. It's productive by default, folks. You get you a piece of that for a little bit at least. Then you have Chris Barnes. Then Panthers, you have Shaq Thomas. Rams, you got Jordan Fuller. Ravens, they've had Chuck Clark doing it. I don't know why they won't hand it over to Patrick Queen. To me, that's a little bit disturbing why they won't, but I guess they really like how Chuck takes care of the things on the field. And then you got J.M. Brown. And then with Washington, it's going to be Cole Holcomb. Probably sitting. So hopefully, I see Bostic on a lot of waiver wires. You guys are correct. Bostic is done.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you, Gary, for that list. It's time for final thoughts. You can find Tripp at Dynasty Tripp on Twitter, and his work is at dynastyfootballfactory.com. Tripp, any final thoughts?
Well, I'm excited for some football, and I'm going to have a big, long list of games to get through and sift through some schemes and some waiver wire recommendations coming up here this week. I've got a lot of football to study.
I'm looking forward to it. Finally, the OG of IDP can be found at the IDP Tipster on Twitter, and subscribe to Gridiron Ratings for all of his IDP analysis. Gary, any final thoughts?
I think somebody just sacked Brady. No, he just threw an interception. All right. That was my final thought.
We'll take it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm JJ Wenner. You can find me on Twitter at JJ Wenner. Thank you to Tripp and Gary for joining me as always. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you tune into our Tuesday edition with Craig Ruth and the crew. Don't forget to subscribe for a chance to win a Gridiron Ratings Playbook. And remember, your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. Good night.